right, so let's learn about logo design and the best practices. So the overview of what we're going to talk about is what exactly a logo is, the different types and the different usages of those logos, some resources and tips and tricks before we get into the workshop and I share my screen of showing the program. So logos, marks, and icons. These are all kind of different, but what are they? Obviously, these are very iconic, and I'm sure you guys know each and every one of these. And these are seen all the time and very familiar. So logos are these symbols and names of companies or businesses. They could also be products as well. And we'll get into a little bit deeper about exactly what these are, but these are very large corporate businesses and obviously very iconic marks. An emblem is another type of logo. That's usually something that has a character or symbol or some type of like motif or illustration, or it's in a very specific shape. So the Starbucks logo is just in a circle, but the NFL and the Harley Davidson has a little bit more of this intricate shape, and that's very common for emblem designs. The NFL has some more iconic motion in there, but it's okay that it's still like they're all contained in a little form. So it's that kind of makes more of that emblem style. Mascots are another type of logo, and that's adding an actual character or person, or it could be like Tony the Tiger, so it doesn't have to be a person, but something that adds a little bit more character to the brand or the company. And that's combination with actual text that describes what it is. Now, of course, you can see certain of these, like just the face of Wendy without the word Wendy's, and know exactly what that is. Sometimes these are paired together, whether that's on the product or just for the business itself. But that's kind of how this mascot is considered its own logo, is adding that character to the type of the company or product. A logo mark is a little bit different where it's standalone and there's not necessarily text added to this. Now, we all know what these are because they're so iconic, but there has been text paired with these in the past. So we know that that's an Apple logo, but sometimes you can see the word Apple paired with it. We know that's the McDonald's arches, and sometimes the McDonald's word is written underneath of it. Now, that's because these brands are so iconic that they can take away the text as part of their logo. And so now the mark is kind of their standalone, but sometimes it can just be used to further the identity of that brand. A word mark is a different type of logo where it's strictly just using letter forms. And that can be a very different combination of things, whether it's a signature or it's a very stylized looking type, kind of like Coca-Cola, or it can be custom, which is something like Disney is doing. A letter mark is similar to, it can be a monogram, more custom typography and lettering, where these are just strictly letters in a specific form. It can be contained kind of in that emblem idea, like in a circle or in a different type of shape, or they can just be free to go. And that's kind of can be a main logo, it can be a mark, but it's a specific type of logo design, is the letter mark itself. A combination mark is adding some of those little things together. So you look at Adidas, you look at Converse, those have like an illustration plus text. So that's a combination mark. Sometimes there's like KFC, he's a mascot with text, combination mark. So you can combine different elements together, and they call them combination marks because it's a combo of two different things put together. And that's what a lot of logos are. You'll see an illustration or an image plus text to really drive more of what that brand or company is. All right, so the logo design is great, but I just want to stress that this is part of a whole brand identity system. So part of the brand identity system is that there's a little bit more than just a logo involved. There's usually several different types of logos. There's a master logo, primary logo, secondary logo. Sometimes there might just be one or two, sometimes there's more, but that's most companies here. Then you'll have the logo marks. There will be icons, photography, illustration. So the brand identity system is just all of the visuals and communication that makes up the brand or company that you're working with. So we are looking at logo design today, but it does make up a bigger system in the end. So here's an example of a master logo that we can all recognize from the Cardinals. This is the biggest logo they have. Like, you see it in most places, of the bird with the text. So it's a combination mark. It has the character, it has a word mark, and we see this the most. It's like the prominent big brand, like, this is the Cardinals. And whether it's primary or master is maybe a little bit blurred lines there, but overall, this is like the number one thing that we see. Another one of their logos, which again is like the blurred lines of, is this one primary or not, but we're going to go with it, is the St. Louis Cardinals word mark only. So this is a very specific custom typography made specifically for the Cardinals, and we see this almost as much as we see just the Cardinals with the bird. This is a little bit more used for documents or like web design, something that has that more horizontal need. So it's still it's still used just as much, but maybe not on all items. So secondary is kind of similar to what you're offering from the primary, but maybe it's just formatted a little differently. And that's because they try not to use this one maybe as much. And that's where it's similar type, but it's stacked a little bit differently. So St. Louis in this specific type is a little bit smaller than Cardinals. So that's why this would be considered the secondary one, because it's not used as often as a primary, or maybe just the way it's stacked is a little bit too heavy than what they want to use. But sometimes in certain cases, they might need to use a taller one versus something that's more wide. And here is the mark. Again, something we all know and recognize. And this is probably also considered a master logo of theirs, but it's technically a mark because it's just the letters kind of combined together, and it's used to emphasize more of the brand in general. So we know what this is about the Cardinals, but it's also paired a lot with the St. Louis Cardinals primary and master logo. And here's an example of that. You can see on their helmet, it has the STL, and that's the mark. But larger on their jerseys is the full master primary, like the full master logo with the Cardinals, the bird, it has the text. So that makes it like a little bit more prominent. But combining the two, you know that the mark is emphasizing the brand, the master brand, a little bit more, and how it all comes together. So there's different types of logos. There's even more than this, but just to kind of pare it down a little bit, there's 2D, 3D, illustration, typeface, and monograms. So that monogram would be that STL logo. The typeface logo would be Google. The St. Louis University, that would be a 2D logo. It's just flat, very clean illustration. Xbox, that's a 3D logo. There's some 3D elements in there. It's kind of mixed with 2D as well, with the Xbox 360 being flat. And the Four Hands Brewing Company, that is an illustration logo. So there's so many different types you can actually do to make a logo design. And I want you guys to just understand that that's like, there's no one way to make something. And it really depends on what either the company is, the business is about, or what products you're going to be offering. And when you're making a logo design, part of it is, yes, who are you working for? And where is it going to go? And that's really important when, like, before you start the creative process, so you know exactly what you should be designing for. If your logo is going to go on a building versus a magazine, that scale is drastically different. Or if it's only going to be like a mobile app icon, if that's all you're doing, that has to be very clean and very legible versus something that might be on clothing that could be a little bit more fun or a little bit more delicate. So thinking of where your logo is going to go before you're actually designing that is kind of important to figure out exactly what you need to do to make the logo work. It also means like if you're going to be laser cutting the logo versus printing the logo, that can change how you attack the design. So we'll talk a little bit about some design things. Before you just start your logo, you're going to need a name. And you may have your company name in mind or product name, or maybe this is for a new business and there's not really a name yet. If there is a name, this is also part of the branding process, is kind of having that discovery questions to really dig deeper about what can you do in this discovery to find what you need to build the design. So the main topics for a questionnaire is talking about the client, figuring out who they are, where they come from, what do they like, learn about their business, what do they do, is it a service, is it a product, what are those things, what are they doing, like who is it for, where is this business, how long has it been around, is it new, is it existing and they maybe just need a new logo and need to update, who are the customers, who's the target audience, are you trying to reach like 15-year-old girls, or are you trying to reach 60-year-old men? That's very different age range and a very different market of who you want to like appeal to. And who is the competition for that company or product that you're doing, that you're working for, and what do they do different than you? What do their designs look like? And no, you don't want to copy it, but what are they doing right that you can apply or do differently to make you stand out? So discovering these questions, whether you have a name of your business or not, or you're just trying to learn a little bit more about what to do for your design, can just be really helpful before you start actually designing your logo. Something that is very helpful is understanding the golden ratio. Some of you may have heard of the golden ratio before. It's something found in nature where everything is kind of equal in a specific way. It's this perfectly some like perfect spiral. You can see it physically in nature if you look at the picture, through flowers and plants and space. Like so many things look beautiful when it has the golden ratio applied. So they say, like, if you look at a model, it's because she has the perfect golden ratio, like to her face. Or you'll see a beautiful plant and it's got the perfect golden ratio applied to the way the like stems and the leaves and the rose is like flowing out. So it can come into play when designing a logo, and I'll show you a little bit how that works. Another way is to use the golden ratio circles. And without scaling them, or without, stretching them, you can create that kind of perfect element so that you see this bird in here and it already looks pretty seeing those circles attached, just because it has this perfect like flow to it based off the circles that it's around. So you can use this in the beginning to design something, or you can use it just as a guide, just to make sure your illustrations or your logo type is actually kind of conforming to the golden ratio. And it's not a must, but it is an option. Another option is using a grid to help you design. And there's different types of grids you can use. Hopefully you can see that there's a dot grid option that's a little bit more open space, and it just gives you the dots instead of the full squares, with full deep lines, to give you that kind of like just a little bit of a guide. Whenever you're like freehand writing, if you ever slope your own writing like up or down or just kind of wide, the grid actually helps you kind of stay focused in place. Think about drawing a house. Then you know exactly how many steps up you need to go, how many steps across. So having that grid can really help you figure out your drawing a little bit more perfect imperfectly, and kind of set your designs to be a little bit more balanced. Another thing to think about is the shape. So when we design a logo, what kind of shape do we want to make? Could it be, we can base it off something, and these are just some basic shapes that can be combined together to make something new. And here's that idea again with the emblem and combining those basic shapes. So we can bring things together and create a new type of item. These obviously look like shields, emblems that can be made and applied more type or illustrations to fit into these. And that could be maybe because you're actually making something that's just a badge or a sticker, or maybe it's going on a t-shirt, which is kind of what they look like at first glance. But they can be pretty much anything. And they can be further developed into just a more simple basic shape. So a circle or just a hexagon can be something your designs can fit right in. And the rules are meant to be broken. This isn't nothing's ever a must here. Minimalist logos is another like type of logo or thing that we can use as a design element. And that's trying to create something new from the negative space. And negative space is a very big design element because it helps what's there breathe a little bit or create something new. So I really love the bunny in the corner because it still looks like a bunny, but it's still holding a carrot. And that carrot looks like it's actually there, but it's just using the negative space. So thinking about how you can use negative space in your design can really make it more impactful and make the user think like, that's smart, or like just that works really well. And when it works really well, people are going to remember it a lot more. Here is an example of like trying to show different usage of a same logo. You can have something that's horizontal, it has a motif on the top, and it has the text fully horizontal on the bottom. Then you have a logo mark, which is using the same or similar motif and just using the initials of the company or the name. And then you have a circle mark. So this has a little bit more information involved because now it has an establishment date, where before in the horizontal one, it does not. It could because it can still fit, but it's just trying to show that you can have the different marks for one company and they're all useful and they all still fit the same brand. So you might need more than one for different reasons. So logo design is not just like you make one and done. You might have a lot of options you need to make or a lot of uses it needs to be. Another important element is balance in your logo. And I really wanted to show this because this one is obviously for the blues, but the blues icon, like the actual blue note, is a little bit smaller. The word blues is the biggest, and St. Louis is again smaller. But you can just feel the balance of these together and how the blues is kind of holding the St. Louis and the icon of the note together, and just it feels right. The St. Louis is hitting over the L and the E without stretching over to the B and the S, and the blue note itself is a little bit inwards. So you can just feel the balance of this, and it's something to think about when you're bringing in a combination of illustration or icons plus text and how they kind of work together. And that can be through shape, that can be through color, and also where does your eye go when you're looking at something. So that's something to think about. Really quick, some resources. There's so much out there online. I'm going to show you Adobe Illustrator. There's so many resources for inspiration out there. Pinterest is probably number one. Behance is a little bit more for professional artists that showcase their work. I'm going to be using Adobe Typekit, but there's other things out there for free. Like if you're interested in going on dafont.com and looking at free fonts, that's a good place to look. So there's just a lot out there if you need to make something yourself or if you're just looking for inspiration. And some very quick tips. Keep it simple because simple is just better when you're making a logo. Keep it memorable so people remember it. And that's Hard to do, but that means keeping it simple will make it memorable. Consistency in the brand. Make it appropriate. So that's making sure you're designing something for your target audience. Try and be unique. We're not trying to be trendy. This isn't something that's supposed to be only for a 10-minute situation. If you're going to spend time designing this and going to print it or put it out there on the web digitally, it should be something that's special, or it should be something that's actually timeless. Be cautious of your typography choices and what those look like. Does it work in black and white? If your logo only works in color, is it strong enough? Or can it be the same type of memorable, and does it make sense if it's just in black and white? And the same thing with color. Adaptability for the different contexts that it may need to be in, and the everlasting is making it timeless for good uses. So now I'm going to, oh wait, there's one more thing here. I want to tell you guys that we're going to talk about saving a little bit. When you have logo design, it's very important that you save in different formats. So you can have JPEG and PNG logos, and those are going to be different for having a white background or a transparent background. You can see it on the corner where it says logo. One says vector and one says raster. So it's important to also have vector logos available, because raster logos are not infinitely scalable. They can lose the scale of it and become pixelated, where you might need a vector logo in order to scale it appropriately. You will also need CMYK, which is to print your logo. So that's a specific color mode, and an RGB color mode, and that's specifically used for digital web design. And when you're saving those logos, this is a quick example to show you what that brand package may look like. So you may have several folders of all of the elements that go into your brand. You might have a logo folder that has several different options in there: your master, your primary, your secondary, your marks. And then within each folder, you'll have a print folder that's your CMYK, a web folder that has your RGB logos, and a vector folder. And that vector folder, that vector file specifically, is a final piece of what you've been working on and can be sent to people if needed, like specifically if they need a working file to play with. All right, now I'm going to show you Illustrator. And you can use Illustrator at the library. And if you want to play with this at home but don't have Illustrator, I recommend downloading Inkscape. It is free to use, and it'll look similar, and it'll act very similar to what I'm using today. So very quickly, I want to show you that I am making up this name. It's called the Flamingo Garden, and I want to make a logo for it. And I'm pretending that it's my own garden in my backyard, and Spring Beauty Drive is not where I live, but it's a street in St. Louis, which I think is very cool. And I wrote that down on there because maybe I'll put it in the logo or maybe not. But I thought I'd put it down on there. And this is something that I would do if I'm especially working with a big brand. But even though it's a logo design, I still kind of want to throw ideas out here. And that's something that you guys can do as well, just to kind of like have that brainstorm going in your mind to figure out exactly where you're going to go, instead of like working blindly and you have no idea what to do on a blank page. This kind of helps that process move forward. So my Flamingo Garden is just like a really cool garden, but it has a lot of fruits and vegetables that I'm growing. Right now I just want a garden sign, but eventually maybe I want to sell I want to make jam, I want to make like pickled vegetables and salsa, and I might want to sell it at a farmer's market. So I wrote here like what I want. So I want a sign, I want labels, I want some swag, and eventually a website. Just like throw it all on the page just so I know. Where is it going? So that's where it's going. Who is it for? Well, first it's going to be for me, but eventually it's going to be for like health foodies who are going to want something fresh and who really like, people who go to farmers markets, busy families who like to eat healthy. So that's like who I'm going for, is who's going to go to the farmer's market and gather my product. So now I have the flamingo garden, like I know what I'm working with, and then I'm trying to brainstorm ideas of like, okay, when I just think of the word flamingo garden, what do I think of? And this list can be pages and pages long, and usually I'm doing this in a sketchbook in addition to sketches of logo designs. And I'm just writing down some things that I see or things that I know I have in my garden. And I know that I like really want to work with plants, so I'm just gonna like bold this, and I definitely want to do something like with a flamingo, but I'm not sure what. But since it has it in the name, I'm gonna like highlight those. I really want leaves, but maybe I don't want rocks or the flowers. I don't want to like be too specific with fruits or veggies, so I might just leave those there. But once you start brainstorming all of your ideas for what this company or product is, name that you're working with, you'll brainstorm a whole bunch of words on a sheet of paper and then like circle like 3 to 5 of them. And that'll start to help you get an idea of like what this is going to turn into. And then the next thing I do is I create a mood board. And a mood board is basically just a collection of some imagery that'll kind of guide my direction or just an idea of things that I like and things that I would like to apply and see what this logo could turn into. This may be very different, but sometimes it's helpful. And things I gathered here are pictures of my lawn flamingos, my garden. I really like how basic these leaves are, or maybe I might want to add some like floral or veggies to it. And then I have some different type options here that kind of combines like letter forms and how it kind of like flows into each other. And this little asterisk here is like a little drop, and that's cute. The Good Life, it feels very flowy, and I like the way that kind of mends together. Or maybe I want something more of this, not necessarily an emblem, but more of this like circle lockup. And then I have just like these paint swatches because I feel like they really fit my garden idea, and that kind of works with the plants. So it's just kind of getting an idea of like what things can I find online that I like, put together just to visualize on my artboard, and then before I start working. All right, so now we're going to start diving in. And as I work, I'm going to teach you a few little things of Illustrator. But learning Illustrator alone is it's a very big program, but it's also very easy to learn. So the first thing is I have a basic toolbar here on the left, and I have additional toolbars here on the right. My main tool is my black arrow, which lets me like grab groups of items or big items. And then I have a white arrow. And white arrows let me add points or be more specific to what I'm grabbing. So those are two tools that we're going to be working with right now. Another one is the shape tool, which I'm going to show you in just a second. So I have just the square and some circles on here. I'm just dragging over it to select it. You can see this light blue with these white squares. This is called a bounding box, so I know I have it selected. And I just kind of want to show you how things you can combine or deselect from each other. So there's this tool called the Shape Builder. And something fun about Illustrator and other programs as well, when you highlight over it with just your mouse, it'll tell you what the tool is called. And I don't know if you can see this, but there is a little tiny corner, which means it basically means there's like a drawer. These tools mostly have drawers. So if you see a little tiny like corner triangle, it means if you hold it down, you'll like open the drawer and you'll find a lot more items underneath. So under the shape tool, you'll find a pencil tool, a smooth tool, eraser tool. So you'll find a few more items under there. And that's just like a good note, because if they were all listed here, the toolbar would just be a little bit heavy. And I kind of like when they're just stacked like this. So we're going to learn how to combine them together. With the shape tool, it's a Shape Builder tool. You can see when I highlight over things, it gives me this kind of like grayed like box, and that means I can do something to it. And if you look in my arrow, there's a plus sign, but if I hold down Option, it turns into a minus. So if I'm just not holding down anything and I hit and it's a plus, I can just highlight over this circle and it combines it, which is super cool. And if I hold down Option and hit minus, that part erases it. Super easy. So this is a way that you can make your own emblem type of shapes. Another way to use this tool is I'm going to actually open, not the drawer, but I'm going to pull this out and have my swatch panel here. And I can actually click and drag so this window is available. Otherwise, it kind of stays tucked into the side. You can use this as a way to kind of paint bucket your shapes. So right now I'm on a stroke. I'm actually going to switch this. So I'm going to use a fill and just hit different colors. And I can just hit different shapes using my Shape Builder tool, which is super fun. And now they're all individual items, or I can select and I can actually just group them together and make it one. So that's what the Shape Builder is. And I want to show you another way to use shapes. So let's get rid of this black stroke and play with a blue. This square right here is the beginning of my drawer of shapes. So we have a rectangle tool, rounded rectangles, ellipse tool, polygon, star, and a flare tool. Now the flare tool is a little bit different because it actually gives you that lens flare, but we're going to just play with the other ones. So we can have square. Now, if I want a perfect square, the main trick is to hold down Shift. And that's going to be for most programs. Hold down Shift and you got your perfect square. You let go of it and you're good to go. Now, something fun about Illustrator is that if you see now that there's these white circles in the corner, it means I can change those to be rounded. So I'm going to use my white arrow because that lets me select specific points. And if I just click and drag, you can see that it's starting to turn and I can make a rounded square. If I go all the way in, it turns into a circle. But something that would be a little bit more fun is only doing opposite corners. And now I have a different shape altogether. The polygon tool, again, hold down Shift. But what if you want more lines? The best thing is to just hit Page Up on your keyboard and you can add much more lines to your polygon, or you can add fewer if you're looking for a triangle. And same goes for the star. It'll start with a basic star and you can start to add more points as you go in, less if you go to the end. So it's a few quick little things to play with. And one more thing. So we just made the shape by rounding two corners of a circle, of a square, I'm sorry. Another way to do that, to get this shape, we have one circle here. I'm going to make it pink. And I'm going to change the opacity so it's not so bright. I'm going to duplicate it and try and get that shape to show up in the middle there, which looks good. It looks similar to that shape, except it's not tilted. And we can go back to our Shape Builder tool, make sure our object is selected, and make sure it says minus, not plus. Then I can get rid of those outside shapes. And now I have that the same thing. Now it's duplicated because there was two circles on top of each other, but now I got the same shape. And since I wanted leaves in my logo, I want to show you how to make some cool leaf ideas, which we're already working with here. I'm going to hold down Shift and I can start to rotate this a little bit. And this is going to turn into something. If I do this and I'm like, oh, but I want them to be on the same plane, we have something called the Align tool. So I'm going to just click and drag, select both of them. I have my Align tool set on the top. And again, if you highlight over certain symbols, it'll tell you exactly what it means. But there's something to note that it's important to make sure you're either aligning to a selection, key object, or to the artboard. The artboard is always going to mean the center of the board, or the whole board itself, where the selection is it's just working on these two objects. So I want them to be on the base line together. I'm going to pull that apart a little bit. And so now I got this cute little leaf thing. And I just want to make a line of these. So I'm going to click and drag this down. I'm actually holding a few different keys, but another option you can do is just copy, paste in front, click and drag. And I want to have a whole line of them. So if I can just keep clicking and drag more down. There's a key command that lets me kind of do that a little bit quicker, which is cool. Make this a little bit smaller. Cool. Maybe my plant's not going to be pink. Maybe it'll actually be green, but this is just playing with it right now. So now we have some leaves. But now it's like, okay, how do I turn this into a logo? So maybe I want it to be like on the bottom, and I'm going to have text be written underneath or on top of it. So now I'm just going to start playing with things. It's like, oh, that's cool. I actually just turned this into a little diamond here. That's kind of using that negative space. And I don't know, maybe I don't want it, but right now it's kind of cool. Or I mean, if I put it apart, that diamond starts to disappear a little bit. Something that I want to do is turn this into a little bit more of an option. So I'm going to add an effect and warp this into an arc. Now using both of them, it's kind of a lot. Maybe I'll show you one. So there's a whole bunch of different options here on like what things you can warp, but right now we're just going to look at an arc and turn it into kind of like this little rainbow of leaves. It's set to 100 of a horizontal like bend, which is a lot. So maybe we just want a little bit, or maybe we want a little bit less, so it kind of goes underneath, which is cool. And this is one of those things where it's like all trial and error on like, how do you want your shapes to turn into? Where do you want things to go? Play with it. Another thing is like, make a copy of it. And what if you like this, but you're like, oh, I want to add a little bit more to it. So things are never set in stone. There's something called the appearance panel, and you can see that it has a warp arc attached to it. I can either delete it with a trash can, or I can click right on it and just continue to change it. And this is like a live object that you can continue to work with until you actually re-outline it to create something new. All right, so let's actually just get rid of that one. We have this. I want to quickly show you if I was going to trace a picture, because I might want to have a flamingo in my logo. So how do I get a flamingo in my like design? So I'm going to bring in an actual picture that I really like because it shows the full body, but maybe I don't want the full body. I don't know yet. There's a couple different ways you can trace this. One way is I'm going to make sure that I'm only looking at a stroke and not a fill. And I'm going to use a bright pink. So you see what I'm doing? I can use shapes to kind of like fill in what this looks like. And this is just a stretch and play type thing. Maybe I just have different circles. Maybe I get the polygon and get that triangle in there and stretch it over the wing. Like, you know, just kind of build up that flamingo. Like already basic shapes. But that's like not there yet. Another way to do it is, of course, there's a pencil tool. Under the shaper tool, there's a pencil tool. And the pencil tool literally is just a pencil. So it's a little hard to draw with a mouse unless you're used to it. It depends on the day if I'm used to it or not, but it's kind of funky. But you can see it starts to make like different points around your shape, around your line that you're drawing, which is great. You can actually smooth those out if you can open the drawer and you get the smoother tool. So it gives you this little like circle. You can just highlight right over those shapes and it starts to smooth out your points. You could just keep going over it until it really smooths it. That's super useful. Another way to do it is going back to that white arrow. Remember, the black arrow is letting me move this whole line. And if I use the white arrow, I can actually click on a point. So I'm going to get in really close so you can see. I'm clicking on this point. I can actually move these handlebars to change the direction of things that I want to do. Or maybe I want to extend it out. So using the white and black arrow for different things and point manipulation is going to be very important. And the favorite is if you're not going to use the pencil tool, maybe you want to be a little bit more specific and use the pen tool. And the pen tool, you're going to just go around and just draw points. Now you can be very like quick and like kind of sticky about it because remember we have the smoother tool, or maybe we kind of want it to have this polygon look to it. So there's one option. Another option with the pen tool, is there's two different kinds. There's this pen tool basic, or there's this pen tool, it says curvature tool. Well, I call it like just the other pen tool. What's fun about it is it actually will help draw curves for you. So just hitting one point down gives you a line. Then you start to get curves in there automatically. You see how it just is curving? But if you double click, the next curve will be straight. So I want to click once and then I get this curve. And then I get another curve. And you're trying to find like the extremes so then you can really get that curve to happen naturally. And so another fun way to use a different type of pen tool. I'm gonna make this pink again so you can see that. And again, if you don't like something or you want to edit your lines or just a single point, you can just go in and change those a little bit. And that makes it super easy to do. Okay, I'm going to use a flamingo I already have and show you that if I want to use the golden circle or the golden ratio that we talked about and apply it to like, how do I make it perfect? Now this is something I just drew with a pen tool, and here are the golden circle. Now the way this works is the top is 0.61 inches of 1 inch, and that works for any measurement, but each square is kind of getting smaller and smaller and it's perfectly proportionate. So the circles in this little like bullseye here, each one is 0.61 inches, or like it's 0.61 smaller than the one before it. So this is a group right now, but I can actually take these. I'm going to pull an extra set to the side because there's no reason not to. I'm going to put this flamingo like, I kind of want to just place them here because I already have this built and it's a good base, but you can actually separate whatever circles you want and put them wherever you want. So maybe the smallest one will go in the neck. Maybe this big one goes, maybe I don't want the big one. Maybe I'll put this one between the neck and the body. So how can I find the right place for the circle? And you can already see that I can edit this body of the flamingo because it's not following the golden ratio of the circle. So I can edit these points, again, using the white arrow and clicking the actual square. And I can move these handlebars or move the point and kind of fit it into that circle. And my flamingo is going to start to be a little bit more perfect based on this circle. Now you can add as many circles as you need, but the only key, make sure they're not grouped. The only key is to not stretch them. So doing this to your circle, it doesn't make it a perfect circle anymore. Keep them as much of the ratio as you can in as many places as you need, and it starts to form your object properly. And remember, this is just a guide, and some people are like, this is how they design their logos, and some people never use this for their designs. I would say I'm half. All right, so using the negative space, I'm going to take the other body again. And I want to play with how does the flamingo look in the back. Now for me, it's super easy and it makes more sense to actually make my object white since my artboard is white, and then just pick a random color behind it so I can play with it and see what it looks like as a negative space. And maybe I don't want the whole thing, maybe I just want part of the flamingo. And this lets me just play with what I'm looking at here. And now I'm going to bring this to the text. And we're not going to do a typography lesson, but there's so many different types of fonts to choose from, and how they connect with your product or your company or your business really makes a difference. So it's important to know that each font or style of typography you're going to use it has its own meaning, or how are you going to convey that meaning through your company. So I'm going to take this, maybe I'm going to type in flamingo, and what do I do to this type? If I want to manipulate letters, what I want to explain is like another way to add more to that logo design is this is live text. I can like keep adding letters in here. If I want to manipulate things that I want to connect to this flamingo, you can actually turn this text into an object. So if I go to type and where is it? Type, create outlines. You can see that that changes a box around my letters, and now I can manipulate this. So this is no longer live text. So if I actually picked a certain font and I don't want to forget it, I'm going to leave it there. Duplicate it, because vectors are free and you can add as many of them to your artboard as you need. So I'm going to just create the outlines again. And now what we can play with is manipulating some of those points, and that's going back to the white arrow. So maybe I want to like stretch this F all the way down. This might be a little bit much, but we're just going to go with it right now. And you're like, oh, that's cool. That's how they do it. This is how they do it. You can just pull points together and you can start to manipulate things. And playing with like how these are going to connect is really going to start to build something a little bit more to like fit what you're working with. Now you are like disrupting the typeface, but maybe that's what you're going for with this design. It might be harder with a script font or something that's a little bit more like designy versus something that's kind of big and blocky like this using a Helvetica font, but that's kind of where that comes into. And if I make this white, and this flamingo's hanging out to the side, but if you remember, we can cut him off by using our shape builder tool. I'm going to hit the minus here, and that part is gone, which is great. Now I'm going to just make that a little bit smaller. And remember, whenever you're using text, if you need to make it bigger, hold down Shift. And you can also just use your regular like character key to change the size of your font that you're working with. Again, like there's a lot of text typography stuff we can talk about maybe in the future, but we can also talk about like the space in between letters and what that looks like. But something to keep in mind is never actually just stretch without holding down that Shift key, because then you're manipulating something and that does not look good. So now If you're like, this is perfect, then the next thing you want to do is actually put it on a mock-up. So like if this is a business card, now I have some like white business cards playing here. Business cards is a whole nother like design thing of what you can do, and the options are endless. But maybe this whole thing is going to be the flamingo card, and actually the flamingo will be kind of peeling off the edge here. So I'm going to just make my card pink, make it look like it fits. Just like another way to like either show my client or how I'm going to play with like, where's this logo going to be? What does that look like? Just something to play with. And really quick, if we're going back, and I want to actually pick out specific colors. I have an image here. If I want to pick images from this, pick colors from this image, I can use, I'm going to use my white arrow to select the box behind this. I have an eyedropper tool. If I hold down Shift, I can start to select any color from my image, from my, like any image you have. And it just changes your color perfectly. And you can see that adds it to this bar here. Another way to do it is you can actually just play with the color itself. So you have this red, I'm going to double click it, and you get this whole color bar. Now color is like endless. We can just kind of play with it, hit OK. So that's a just quick little thing about color. But I want to stop and ask and see if you guys have any questions or any ideas of like how I can help with what logos you need to make if you need to make something. Yeah, hopefully that was, I know that was a lot and there's so much more I could talk about, but that was a good start.